Okay, our cake is just about ready to cut, but before we cut it up, I'm going to show you a few things that I've done to set up for our white chocolate mousse. Here I have 2 ounces of water, and I'm going to add a 1/4 ounce of gelatin into it, and this is to bloom. And what all blooming means is that it's hydrating and becoming more usable. You can't really use it in the powdered form because it'll just be grainy and add chunks into your product. You usually just can't add it straight. You have to let it bloom, and then you have to melt it down before you can use it. Okay, and when you add it to the water, make sure you spread it thinly. Don't just pile it in the middle, because the outside will get hydrated, but the middle will never get hydrated and will end up with chunks. Okay, so in order to hydrate, we have to put this to the side for about 1 to 5 minutes. It just doesn't really matter as long as it gets soaked up. And we're going to set this aside. I also have on the stove a pot of milk with 5 ounces of milk, another pot for a double boiler for melting down our chocolate. It's only got a couple of inches of water in it. It's just for the steam, so that way we can melt down the chocolate safely without burning it or causing it to become seized and chunky. Here I have 6 ounces of white chocolate. I am actually using Ghirardelli, but if you can find another brand, you know, you can use it just fine. You can use the chips. Just make sure that it's real white chocolate. If you see something called, what are they called? Like white chocolate morsels or something like that, make sure you read the back and see if there's actually cocoa butter in it. If there's no cocoa butter in it, then it's not really white chocolate. All white chocolate is basically cocoa butter. And then it also has milk solids, vanilla, and like lecithin as a stabilizer. So this white chocolate, while it is almost all cocoa butter, is not just cocoa butter. Oh, it's got sugar in it too, obviously. And so what we're going to do is we're going to melt this down and add it to our hot milk after we start boiling it. Okay, let's go ahead and cut our cake layer. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is you want to put down a damp towel. That's going to keep your cake from sliding around while you're cutting it, right? While you're trying to cut it. And then what you want to do is you want to run your knife all the way around, holding it still along the midpoint, tracing a line. Okay, once you've met up with your line on the other side, go ahead and start cutting it. Just use a gentle sawing motion, slightly, very, very slightly angling your knife downward like this, but very slight angle, because the cake is going to provide some resistance. So if you just cut straight across as if you were holding a knife completely flat, your cake is actually going to force your knife to push up. Now you're going to have to feel your cake, and depending on how your cake is, depends on how much it's going to resist. So don't overcompensate, but don't let it get the best of you either. Don't let it force your knife up. Okay? And I'm not pushing the knife, I'm just very slightly guiding the knife, really. And once you get halfway through, go ahead and just saw all the way through. And there you go. And now you can save this cake layer for some other project if you want. Just wrap it with plastic wrap and you can freeze it. And we're going to use this cake layer for our white chocolate mousse cake. Okay, so now that we have our cake layer cut, let's go ahead and bring our cake over here. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and just put it inside of our cake ring. Now if your cake ring doesn't fit, or if your cake is too big for your cake ring, just use it like a cookie cutter and just cut off the edges or the sides or whatever's sticking out. Just make sure that your cardboard is smaller than your cake ring, because you need to push all the way through. So if your cake circle is like 1 inch bigger or whatever, it's not going to work to release it. Okay? And then just take some simple syrup. This is going to provide some moisture and some sweetness. And if you've added or infused any flavors as well, any extracts or whatever, into your sugar or into your sugar syrup, then that'll also add a flavor as well. Now all the simple syrup is doing is adding some moisture to typically dry cake, and this is the secret that most kitchens use. And all sugar syrup is equal parts of sugar and water boiled on the stove with a little bit of cream or tartar. It's just brought to a boil. You don't have to let it boil for a longer period of time. In fact, if you do, you run the risk of turning it into a giant sugar crystal, so you want to be careful about that. So while the sugar syrup is soaking into the cake, we're going to go ahead and make our white chocolate mousse. Okay, the first thing you want to do when you're getting ready for mousse is you want to separate 4 eggs. You want 4 egg yolks. The egg whites you don't need, so you can save that for an egg white omelet for your breakfast or whatever. It's not necessary for the mousse. And then in a mixing bowl, you want to have, let's see, 14 ounces of heavy cream, 1/8 of an ounce of vanilla extract, or if you have whole vanilla beans, you can infuse that when we boil the milk on the stove. And then you want 2½ ounces of powdered sugar. Okay, and now we're just going to whip all the ingredients together until we have whipped cream, and it's going to be about medium to stiff peaks. Okay, it's not easy to see, but we've got stiff peaks, and basically medium to stiff peaks. And the way you can tell is if you turn your bowl upside down, it moves slightly. You can also, if you whip it for a little bit longer until a point where it doesn't move at all, then that'll be stiff peaks. But we don't really want completely stiff peaks either. Alright, so let's take this off the bowl, and we're going to set it to the side. Okay, now here we are at the stove. We're going to go ahead and start boiling our water and our milk, and we're going to melt down our gelatin. Now when you're melting down gelatin, you want to do it on a very low heat, and you want to melt it down all the way until you don't see any chunks or pieces or grains. Basically you want it to look like water. Okay, when your milk comes to a boil, we're going to go ahead and temper our egg yolks. Okay, and all tempering is we're slowly adding a hot liquid to our cold eggs, and we want to do it slowly while whisking it to prevent it from coagulating and turning to scrambled eggs. Okay, now that all of our egg yolks all the milk has been added to the egg yolks, let's come back to the stove. Okay, our water is boiling for our double boiler, so we'll turn off the water or the heat. Okay, so as you can see, our gelatin is all melted down into a nice liquid state. We're going to go ahead and add this to our milk and egg yolks. Okay, so once again our water is boiling, so we're going to go ahead and turn off the heat. And we're going to put our white chocolate right on top, and we're going to melt it down. Now while you're melting down the white chocolate, you also want to have a ice bath ready. In my ice bath, the ice is almost melted because it's been taking me so long in between cutting seams or anything like that. But all an ice bath is just water with ice in it, and you don't want it overflowing with water, because you can get water in your product and it can be a big mess. But you also don't want it to just be mostly ice and then a little bit of water, because you want the water to come up to the sides of the bowl to help cool it down. And I'll explain what we're doing when we're doing that. Okay, when your white chocolate's all melted down, we're going to go ahead and add this to the egg yolk and milk mixture. Okay, let's go ahead and add it together. and just stir it together. Okay, once your egg yolks are combined, go ahead and bring an ice bath over. Like I said earlier, all my ice is melted now because it took me so long to get across, or to get done with the filming. But, you know, imagine there's ice in here. And what you're doing is you're cooling down the egg yolk, white chocolate, and milk mixture. And the reason you're doing this is because you want to be able to fold in the whipped cream without the whipped cream melting. So you want it pretty cool. So go ahead and just continuously stir it to help cool it down. This will help cool it down evenly, but it'll also help prevent the gelatin from setting up in certain places along the edges. And when this is all done, we'll go ahead and fold in the whipped cream. So this will take a pretty good while, maybe about 10 minutes. Okay, now there's one thing I forgot to mention is that you want to make sure before you add the mousse, the white chocolate mousse, to tape down the cake and the cardboard to the cake ring. And you can do this with some Scotch tape. Just put it on the edges, one on each well, corner, but 4 all together, and that'll help secure it, making sure that, you know, when you take it out of the refrigerator, you know, when you're not thinking about it, you don't accidentally, like, it doesn't just slip through because of its own weight and gravity. Okay, so now we're ready to add our whipped cream. The whipped cream, the egg yolk and milk mixture and white chocolate mixture, it's cool to touch. When I stick my finger in it, it feels cold, or cool anyway. It doesn't feel warm, it doesn't feel hot. And that's how you know when it's ready for the whipped cream. Okay, and so with a clean spatula, go ahead and take a scoop of the whipped cream. And what we're going to do is we're just going to stir it together first. And this is going to help give the mixture some body, so that way we have something to fold against. And actually, I'm going to switch to a whip. Okay. Add a little bit more whipped cream this time. And it's still a little runny, so I'm going to go ahead and use the whisk again and whisk it gently. Okay, and we're going to add the rest of the whipped cream now. Okay, and it's still a little runny, so let's go ahead and continue using the whisk. Okay, and now our white chocolate mousse is ready to use. So we'll go ahead and pour this. Okay, let's just pour this mixture right in. Okay, go ahead and swirl in any of the egg yolk mixture that didn't get folded really well with the egg whites. And what you want to do is you want to try and create a very smooth, very flat layer.